Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome and bienvenidos to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Asheville. I'm Charlie Marks, today's worship associate, and together with Reverend Kathy Harrington and our Board of Trustees President Clyde Harden, we welcome you to today's service. Come, whoever you are. No matter where you are from, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, whomever you love, know that you are welcome here. We're glad you are here, members, friends, and visitors. We welcome, too, those visiting online. Should you wish to learn more about us, click on the link in the chat box. And while you're in the chat, please introduce yourself and tell us where you're watching from. We're glad you are here. Now, may I introduce our board president, Clyde Harding.
Good morning. Well, thank you. I am indeed Clyde Harden, current president of our Board of Trustees. The opportunity fair that we had 2 weeks ago showed us how we might contribute our time and talent to UU Asheville. It was amazing to see how many people were there and feel the energy of such a big gathering of our fellow travelers. The place was packed. With a heart full of gratitude, I'm here to speak to you about contributing something else we need as much as your time and talent: your money. It's been a rough 2.5 years. I don't have to tell you how much this pandemic has affected us as individuals and UU Asheville as an institution. And we're 1 year into an exciting 2-year transition aimed at calling our next minister. But that excitement necessarily comes with some uncertainty. And then there's the economic uncertainty that pervades our world. So quite naturally, some of us have pulled back, become less engaged. And with decreased engagement comes a decrease in the financial support we count on. This is all totally natural and expected. Almost all churches are seeing these effects. Still, fully aware of all this, at our annual meeting in June, our congregation bravely passed an optimistic, look-to-the-future, values-based budget. We fully funded our programs. We gave our stalwart staff raises that come closer to matching their value and that keep pace with the increased cost of living. Unlike our usual balanced budget, this year's budget is in deficit by a significant amount. But by adopting that forward-looking moral budget, we said out loud that now is not a time to cower and fear the future, but rather a time to count on the resiliency of this congregation. We said that this is not a time to retrench, but a time to reawaken, re-engage, and rededicate. So, we've arrived at an important moment in the life of UU Asheville. The pandemic, while not gone, is allowing most of us to meet in person. We're about to call a new minister. We're seeing many new faces attend our services. And, I hope, we're realizing how much this church can be to us and the larger community. So we are asking that all of us together meet the moment. Financially, meeting the moment calls us to greatly decrease our deficit now by asking for money a second time in this church year, to do what people often call a second ask. This is a one-time commitment that augments your already pledged contribution for this church year. Here, one time means we're not asking you to increase your base annual contribution going forward. And the second ask does not replace the annual giving drive that usually happens in March, when we'll ask you to support the 23-24 church year. Well, how much should you give? Only you know what is appropriate and possible for you. But for your consideration, We are hoping you can make a one-time contribution equal to 20% of your annual gift. An additional 20% from all givers would totally erase our deficit. If you can give more, know how gratefully that will be received and how it helps others who are not able to give as much. If your decision is to give less based on your personal situation, please know that we recognize each of us will do the best we can to help the cause. My wife Iris and I have considered this, and we will contribute an additional 25% of our current commitment. I share this with you only as my testimony to what re-engagement means to my family in this community. One additional thing to consider. I understand that many prospective ministers are interested in UU Asheville, and they've started to check us out. That's great to hear. In fact, some may be surfing our website now, or even watching this service online. If you're out there, hello. This is a really great place. One of the things they'll heavily consider, quite reasonably, is our financial health. We've been really good financial stewards for a very long time, and we're still on firm ground. But knocking down this deficit is important to our success in calling the best minister. So, let's show these prospective ministers and ourselves how much we love this church. Let's show all our staff their jobs are secure and they are so greatly appreciated. Let's keep 2 ministers. Let's commit to continuing and expanding our burgeoning RE programs and our internal work on the 8th principle and dismantling racism. And for the larger world, in which morality, truth, democracy, and social, racial, environmental, and reproductive justice are all challenged, let's stand as a bright beacon illuminating those values. Let's catch the wave of awakening we've been seeing recently. People are filling our sanctuary. Visitors are checking us out. It's a new day. We are coming home to community. We can truly live our values with your support. Watch your email and your snail mail this week for information on how to make your one-time pledge. You can direct any questions you may have to me or any other board member. Let's meet the moment. Thanks for listening. And now, if you weren't already aware, we should prepare for worship with today's centering music.
Hearts open, minds awake, change us now for heaven's sake. Leave us not alone in hatred's wake. Show us how to love, show us how to love, show us how, show us how to
That was beautiful. Great way to start our service this morning. I'm Reverend Kathy Harrington, and I serve this congregation as interim minister. We are in our second year of interim, and this is an exciting year where the congregation will search for their new minister. Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Lindsay Bates. To face the world's shadows, a chalice of light. To face the world's coldness, a chalice of warmth. To face the world's terrors, a chalice of courage. To face the world's turmoil, a chalice of peace. May its glow fill our spirits, our hearts, and our lives. And our opening words this morning are by Reverend Gretchen Haley. Come in, all who long to know how to love this world, how to keep eyes open and hands unclenched, arms wide, breathing deeply, in and out. This is a time to practice because there is still so much good and beauty and joy, but it can be hard to keep telling this tale with all the news and the wind and the rain and the trembling earth. Who wants to love this life anyway? Come in, all who teeter on the edge of cynicism, broken-hearted, and trying still to remember laughter and kindness, and the chance to be alive in these days when so much is at stake. In this place, we remind each other why we persist, giving each other courage to take this path that is not always easy, to keep practicing this love that cannot, that will not let us go, and still calls us on. It's good to be together again. Let us begin together in song. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, in the Teal hymnal. Thank you. That was beautiful. And now is our time for our story wisdom. being told this morning by our new favorite storyteller, Colleen Finnegan.
Do a good job one week, you get put on the job next week. That's a pretty good deal. Well, I have two challenges before I start. First of all, I want to see all the little kiddos down there with their eyes up here, and then I want to have all the big kiddos. You got to think about the names of these characters, okay? Because after I finished reading the book twice, it sunk in. It's called Desmond Gets Free. I bet you're already thinking, aren't you, big kids? And there's a dedication I want to read. It says, "For all those working to build a new world for justice, equity, and compassion." Now, this is the story of Desmond the mouse. He lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. And for my art enthusiasts, looks like a lot of watercolor up there. I like that. Every morning, Desmond woke with the sunrise and would spend the day playing in the meadow. And every evening, Desmond would go to sleep in the middle of that meadow under the beautiful starry sky. One night, though, Desmond awoke when it was still dark out. He tried to roll over to a more comfortable spot, but something wasn't right. Desmond realized that his tail was stuck to the ground and beginning to throb with pain. He felt behind him, and there was a huge boulder that seemed to have fallen in the middle of the meadow just on his tail. Desmond pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail. He pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail. And he pushed and he tugged and he pushed and he tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up, he saw a giraffe nearby in the grass. Good news, he thought. "Oh, giraffe," Desmond cried, "could you please push the boulder a few inches in the other direction so that I could go free?" The giraffe looked at Desmond and laughed. You know, the way giraffes do. "Silly mouse," said the giraffe, "that's no boulder. That's an elephant that's fallen asleep in the middle of the meadow just on your tail." "Well, if you could just wake the elephant and ask him to roll over a few inches in the other direction, I could go free," said Desmond. "Well," replied the giraffe, "you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like these." Desmond quietly replied, "Well, I do not appreciate your neutrality." The giraffe wandered off, and Desmond tried calling out to the elephant to wake him up. But those giant ears were just too far away on the other side of the giant elephant body. So again, Desmond pushed on the elephant and tugged on his tail. He pushed and he tugged and he pushed and he tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and just about to give up, a gazelle wandered by. "Oh, gazelle," he cried. "Oh, gazelle, it seemed like an elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of the meadow. I'm stuck and it hurts. I wonder if you could gently wake him and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I might go free." "Well," said the gazelle, "I see your problem there, but you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times like these." Desmond replied, almost to himself this time, "I do not appreciate your neutrality." Desmond tried again to call out to the elephant. He tried again to push the giant animal away. He tried again and again to tug his little tail free, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up for the last time, he saw another mouse wandering through the meadow. "My name is Nelson. Nelson, the giant elephant, has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you might run over and call out into his giant ears and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so I could go free," Desmond asked. "Of course," said Nelson. Nelson ran all the way to the other end of the giant elephant body, and he called up to those giant elephant ears at the top of the giant elephant head. But the elephant didn't budge. The elephant heard Nelson's small voice far away, but he was too comfortable to move. Nelson ran back to Desmond, a little out of breath, and said, "I have an idea. Don't move." He ran off. "I won't," muttered Desmond. A little while later, though, Nelson emerged through the tall grass, and he wasn't alone. Nelson had found 3 other mouse friends to help him, and each one of them also brought another 3 friends. The whole group of them ran over to the giant head of the giant elephant. One mouse scrambled up to the shoulders of another, and another mouse scrambled up on her shoulders. And then one after another, they climbed up until the whole group of them had formed a long mouse ladder right up to the side of the elephant. At last, Nelson climbed up the shoulders of his mouse friends, one on top of another, until he was way up on the giant elephant head, standing next to the giant elephant ear. "Excuse me," he called out right into that ear. "It seems that you have fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. I wonder if you could roll over just a few inches in the other direction so he might go free." The giant elephant made a giant low groan. "Grumph. I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away." So Nelson asked more of his mouse friends to climb up. One by one, they helped each other up the side of the elephant. One by one, they called out into the giant elephant ear on top of the giant elephant head. Again, the giant elephant made a low groan. "Grumph. I'm comfortable just where I am. Go away." Then Nelson had an idea. He whispered to the mice, and they all at once yelled out together, "Excuse us, it seemed like you've fallen on our friend's tail in the middle of this meadow. Roll over a few inches in the other direction so he can go free." This time, all the voices together, right next to the elephant's ear, were too loud to ignore. "I was comfortable where I was, but I'll move over if you agree to stop making such racket," the elephant cried out. And then the elephant rolled over just a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and the other mice helped each other climb back down, and Desmond was finally free. Desmond and Nelson and all of their mouse friends spent the rest of the beautiful day playing in the middle of the beautiful meadow. That's the end of the story, but don't do anything yet. There's a quote on the back page that I want to read. "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality." That's a direct quote from Archbishop who? A+.
Thank you, Colleen. So if everybody in this room said, "Excuse me," do you think the mouse would hear? Let me hear you say it. "Excuse me." Yes, teamwork is what we need. And so now it's time for the children and youth, and that we invite you to go to your religious exploration classes. You'll be sung out of the sanctuary and then meet group leaders in the foyer of Sandburg Hall and go to classes together. Look for the adults holding the sign with your grade to find your group. Parents, if you're new or visiting, please escort your children to their class to meet the group leaders to find out where to pick your child up after worship. Let's sing our children out. They're on their way. Group of families and children this morning. It's exuberance. So now I'm going to invite Venny Sakritz up. We have a new member welcome. And all the members who are joining this morning can also come up as well. They disappeared, Venny. Where'd they go? They're serving. Oh, wow. So it's a special day in our congregation. We are being transformed. These folks up here who are joining our congregation this morning are going to bring new ideas, new desires, new energies, new opportunities to us. And we are going to share our ideas, desires, and energies and projects with them. Our covenant securely grounds us, but it also resonates with new life. As George Kimmich Beach said, people don't join a covenanted community, rather they constitute it. There is no it without them, and each time new folks join, the whole is literally reconstituted. Welcome, new members.
At this moment, is this on? At this time, I'd like them to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Susan Foster.
Good morning, I'm Chris Stewart.
Good morning, I'm Marcia Tibbetts.
Good morning, I'm Toby Brown.
Good morning, I'm Holly Brasher.
I'm Dwayne Bigelow.
And I'm Stephen Cephalou.
New members, if you could say the affirmation, please. I affirm.
My commitment to this congregation and its work of connection, inspiration, compassion, and justice. I enter willing to grow, ready to serve.
Congregation, if you could please welcome them to the community.
Welcome to this community. We invite you to take part in all of the offers and to share with us your vision, your wisdom, and your dreams.
Now, everybody, if you could do the covenant and the promise.
Recognizing we are individuals who need one another, we stand as a community held together by the promises we make and keep. We promise to share the ministry of our congregation through our gifts of time, talent, and treasure. Care for and support each other. Celebrate our intentional diversity with joy and gratitude. Attend to our differences with openness, compassion, and trust. Create healing by listening and speaking in the spirit of love. Be steadfast in support of our community in times of disagreement. Strive to live our enduring and universal principles and congregational mission. Our lives together declare that the future of each depends on the good of all, and the future of all depends on the good of each.
Thank you all so much for supporting New Asheville. We really appreciate being here. I have a small gift. Thank you.
All right, let's welcome our new members. Thank you all so much. We're so glad you're here with us. In the center of our service and in the center of our lives, let us pause to honor the silences of the world. Let us open our hearts to the place of quiet and the silent prayer for the healing of pain and soft, gentle coming of love. Let us share a moment of silence. Now is the time when we acknowledge our joys and sorrows with a candle lighting ritual. Here in the sanctuary, you're invited to come forward and light a candle of memory and hope. If you're online, please write in the chat box any joys or sorrows that you would like to share with the congregation. If you have shared a joy, know that we rejoice with you. If you have shared a sorrow, know that you are held in love and care by this community.
Sometimes we forget what we missed the last 2 years. And apart from a sea of smiling faces, the choir. Thank you. It's up to us. Going forward, do we thrive or do we merely survive? Earlier, our board president, Clyde Harden, laid out a major financial challenge for us. And now I'll lay out another challenge for us. The next few weeks are crucial. I'm speaking about ministerial search and our part in these next steps in the process. The Ministerial Search Committee's task is to find a minister who can help us realize our vision for UU Asheville. We all have a role to play, and the committee can't play their part unless we play ours. Our committee needs to know what we want church to look like, what role we play in the community, the concerns we have, and what we see as UU Asheville's purpose. In other words, we tell the committee where we want to go, and they find a faith leader to take us there. The committee needs to hear from us, so they've laid out 2 tasks for everyone in the congregation. I challenge you to do both of them. First, complete the congregational survey. This is your first opportunity to tell the committee your hopes for UU Asheville. You will get an email this week containing a link to that survey. The survey is long. It'll take some time. Take a few minutes and do it for us. Second, attend a cottage meeting later this month. In these small group meetings, you'll be sharing your ideas with and listening to those of other members and friends. It's an opportunity to begin building the community you want to be a part of. Expect to see a schedule for those meetings soon. These 2 tasks not only inform the committee's search, but importantly, the results will be reflected in the congregational record, a document on the UUA website. That congregational record is the prime source for prospective ministers to look at us and decide if we fit what they're looking for. Come on, friends, let's do our part.
Thank you, Charlie. I love the story of the loaves and fishes in the Bible. And I love bread. I mean, I'm a foodie, but bread is my passion. I used to own a bakery in Seward, Alaska, called the Miller's Daughter. I come by my passion for food honestly. My family, like most families, has celebrated with food, large amounts of food, all our lives. One of my cousins one time made some T-shirts for a family reunion. We have, Harrington is a very proper English name, and we have a coat of arms. And so she put the coat of arms on a T-shirt with our family slogan underneath in Latin. So you couldn't tell what it said, except we knew. It said, "Until we eat again." So my passion for bread and opening a bakery was so powerful that I knew if I didn't do it, I was going to die, if I couldn't make it happen. Who knew that my call to feed people was a call to ministry? I figured it out after realizing that owning a bakery is hard work, no way to live. The original mission of the Miller's Daughter was to be a sanctuary of nourishment and healing, for people to come in at the end of the day and smell the wonderful bread and be healed. It was also to be a place of education and employment for at-risk members of our society, and to be a place where people would gather for fellowship and fun and food and art and music. It was really a wonderful experience. So I still have a passion for bread, even though I don't own a bakery anymore. But bread, has been an ancient metaphor for life, and its history can be traced back to antiquity. Take your mind back to maybe 5,000 to 8,000 years BCE, when families or small tribes huddled around the campfire, eating their gruel, their mush. Grain was crushed by hand with a pestle and a mortar, and archaeologists have determined from studying the teeth of ancient people that the grain they consumed must have contained pieces of stone or rock from that grinding process. And the mush that was left behind by the fire as they went out to hunt would turn hard, and it would turn into cakes that could be taken with them on the hunt, sort of like modern-day power bars that we put in our backpacks. In ancient Egypt, the first breads were unleavened until the Egyptians discovered natural yeast, which is just natural in the air. Every location has their own natural yeast. Lactobacillus San Francisco is very special, and it dies when it leaves San Francisco, and the sourdough will take on the yeast of the location, Lactobacillus Asheville, right now in my refrigerator. So, anyway, they learned to master the art of bread making, and they had mastered the art of making beer. Yes, there were breweries in ancient Egypt, and bakeries, and there were community ovens that they would fire once a week in the center of their towns, and each family would make a distinctive mark, slice on the bread, so that they would know which bread was theirs. So, throughout entire history of humanity, bread continues to be a metaphor for life and as a vehicle for community. Baking bread is a natural process that has to be watched over with patience and cultivated with skill. And it has been believed that the energy of the baker was baked into the bread, giving nourishment to the spirit as well as the body. I believe that. Some bakers even believe playing classical music while their bread was rising made it even better. I don't think it's so far-fetched, honestly. My internship church, the Unitarian Universalist First UU Austin, Texas, sent me a beautiful handmade quilt when they found out that I had lost my daughter and I was grieving. The quilt was signed by over 350 people, and it was consecrated in a worship service as a gift and as a prayer for me. There's power in that quilt. When I sleep under its warmth, I feel the love that went into it. It's like sleeping beneath a prayer. There's power in the beautiful knitted lap quilts and baby blankets that the Fiverr Friends group create and donate so that the pastoral visitors and the ministers can give them to members and friends who need a little extra TLC. There's a special kind of nourishment that we all receive when we share a meal that has been crafted with love and care. You feel it in your bones, your bloodstream. It's just like a calm that overtakes your entire being. You know the feeling. Every cell of your body relaxes into a collective sigh of peace. A good bowl of soup. And when you walk into someone's home, can't you tell? Can't you tell if the first ingredient in that home is love? You can. Maybe you can't explain what it is, but it's there. And the same is true in a church. I love the story of the little boy who went running into this cathedral just as the priest was beginning to offer communion, and he grabs the bread from the priest, and he begins to eat it. And the priest goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" "That's the communion bread." And the boy said joyfully with his mouth full of bread, "They told me there was bread in this church." There's bread in this church. I feel it. So I chose to talk about two biblical references this morning, the miracle of the loaves and fishes, which, by the way, is the only story that appears in all four of the Gospels. I think that's pretty incredible. And I also want to talk about the one from Matthew, the one little sentence, "The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in measures of meal until the whole was leavened." My internship supervisor, Reverend Davidson Lohr, was a fellow with the Jesus Seminar. I don't know if you remember the Jesus Seminar from many years ago. There was a group of about 150 critical scholars, including John Dominic Crossan. You've probably heard his name. He was a Jesus scholar. He wrote this: "The seminar's reconstruction of the historical Jesus portrayed him as an itinerant, Hellenistic Jewish sage and faith healer who preached a gospel of liberation from injustice in startling parables and aphorisms. An iconoclast, Jesus broke the established Jewish theological dogmas and social conventions, both in his teaching and his behavior, often by turning common sense ideas upside down and confounding the experience of the audience." Davidson once shared in a sermon about the Jesus Seminar when they published their book, The Five Gospels, The Search for the Authentic Words of Jesus, in December of 1993. They reported that they thought that only 18% of the sayings attributed to Jesus were authentic, and only 60% of the scholars believed that the Good Samaritan story, one of the most famous, most authentic stories, was really true, 60%, which made the first story, the highest rated parable, was the sentence that I read to you, which doesn't sound like a parable at all. "The kingdom of heaven is like leaven that a woman took and mixed in with 3 measures of meal until all of it was leavened." So because the Loaves and Fishes story is on all 4 Gospels, it makes me believe that it probably is one of the most authentic words of Jesus, but we'll never really know. So these theories are not welcome by many believers. And when the Pope Francis dared to refer to the miracle of Jesus of feeding the 5,000 with a mere 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, he used it as an example of generosity and sharing. He was sharply criticized for denouncing the miracle. One headline read, "Pope says Jesus didn't multiply bread. He taught people how to share." David Mills, in an article in Commonweal magazine, sought to defend the Pope in an article, and he framed it this way: "The Pope points to the word give. This, he says, tells us something very beautiful. Bread is not only to be consumed, but it is a means of sharing. Surprisingly, the account of the multiplication of the loaves does not mention the multiplication itself. Jesus emphasized sharing, not the multiplying. He does not perform a magic trick," the Pope said. "He does not change 5 loaves into 5,000 and then announce, 'There, distribute them.' No. Jesus first prays, then blesses the 5 loaves and begins to break them, trusting in the Father, and those 5 loaves never run out. This is no magic trick. It's an act of trust in God and his providence." Well, according to the story in the Bible, not only did the loaves never run out, there were leftovers. A lot of leftovers, 12 baskets of leftovers. Wow, that's the true meaning of abundance. We only have to look at how quickly the world's central kitchen showed up and was prepared to feed thousands of people hot meals and sandwiches in response to Hurricane Ian. The founder of World Central Kitchen, Jose Andres, has been feeding the multitudes around the world since 2010, when a huge earthquake devastated Haiti. Andreas says, "We don't just deliver raw ingredients and expect people to fend for themselves. We don't just dump free food into a disaster zone. We source and hire locally whenever we can to jumpstart the economy recovery through food." He says, "After a disaster, food is the fastest way to build our sense of community again. We can put people back to work, preparing it, and when we can put lives together by fighting hunger. Cooking and eating together is what makes us human." This is a modern-day miracle of loaves and fishes, don't you think? I do. It's the kingdom of heaven that Jesus says is all around us. We just don't see it. As Jose Andres says, at times like these, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the challenges we face and the speed of each new crisis. But complex problems have simple solutions, and sometimes you just need to decide to do something. Sometimes you just have to show up with a sandwich or some warm rice and beans. You'd be amazed at the power of a plate of food. It can change the world, and so can you. World Central Kitchen is not just putting food in people's stomachs during disasters. They've created a way to help devastated communities recover and establish resilient food systems. They have culinary training, empowering local culinary and emergency response providers. Witnessing the firsthand crisis of climate change, the World Central Kitchen has launched its Climate Disaster Fund. They will raise and spend $1 billion during the next 10 years to assist communities impacted by extreme weather events caused by climate crisis. I hope you'll look up their website. They are doing so many amazing things. For example, Clean Cooking program, which helps to improve some of the environmental health problems that occur when people in third world countries are cooking with wood or charcoal fuels. Globally, more than 4 million people die from health issues caused by unclean cook stoves each year. That's horrible. So, World Central Kitchen is a modern-day Loaves and Fishes. If it's not a miracle, I don't know what is. We don't have to reach back into biblical times for inspiration. Many complex problems have simple solutions. Supporting this beloved community has a simple solution. Just show up in whatever way you can. Time, talent, treasure, just show up. Give until it feels good. Love this church like it belongs to you, because it does. Remember, you can't babysit your own kids. Remember that. Miracles happen every day, and we just need to show up and be like leaven. The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in the measures of meal until the whole was leavened. This is a perennial truth, folks. This is a truth that will not change. It is the miracle that Jesus wanted people to understand. We are the miracle when we show up. Be the leaven that makes the world whole. Start right here in this moment. James Luther Adams' favorite definition of God is community-forming power. And the word companion is derived from the Latin words that mean breaking bread together. This congregation is making a difference in people's lives. Beloved is just one example of the collective work you're doing to make a difference. And don't forget that the moral budget you passed last year is a perfect example, a powerful example of how you are living your values. There are a lot of reasons to support a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Many of us have different reasons for joining, but clearly it will take all of us. It will take a collective effort to move the metaphorical elephant off the tail of a mouse. So make it be so. Be the leaven. May that be so. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 168, One More Step.
Everyone will take one.
of my favorite times. If you're visiting us here in the sanctuary, welcome. And if it feels good, we'd love it if you'd stand and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. The ushers are circulating with some hand mics.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie Nersessian. I'm visiting from New Jersey, Barrick, and my great friend Amy Glenn. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rayana Starr, and I moved to Asheville about 3 years ago, and I'm finally feeling safe to get out there and be amongst the people again.
Welcome.
I'm Ellie Lipinski. I was here in 2019, and I sang with the very best choir and the very best choir director while I was here. And I want to thank you for how wonderful the songs you choose and the way that you direct the choir and the people in the choir. Just a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Welcome.
Sandra, it's my first time here. So fun. Guys, what? My parents are visiting me this weekend, Judy and John. They're the best. So welcome them to the UU again.
Welcome.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I haven't been to church for about 5 years. Been surfing the big waves. And I just wanted to let you know I was back, and it's really good to see everybody.
Welcome. Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again here soon. If you missed the announcement slides before the service, they're all in I think it's Wednesday's weekly e-news email and on the homepage of our website. This Wednesday, you are invited to join us in Sandberg Hall for dinner at 6 p.m., followed by Vespers at 7 p.m. Reverend Kathy will lead a candlelight service of reflection in honor of Yom Kippur, the Jewish Holy Day of Atonement. There is no fee for the dinner. Our community plate recipient for October is the wonderful Be Loved Asheville. Their support for those in our community who are having a hard time is far-reaching and invaluable. The Reverend Amy Cantrell is here this morning from Be Loved Asheville to tell us more about the Street Medic program. Amy?
Good morning. It's so wonderful to be back here again in this wonderful congregation and to hear the choir and to hear the powerful stories being told and to feel your spirits. I thank you. I want to tell you about a friend of mine named Ruby Sales, civil rights activist, or what she calls a member of the work of the Southern Freedom Movement. And she asks a very powerful question: where does it hurt? And I'd love for you to sit with that question just in your spirit. Where does it hurt? When I think about our street medic teams, I think about Ruby and that question. We hurt very much when our friend Janet Jones froze to death on the streets of Asheville in October of 2016. And out of grief and longing, our people said it hurts very much. And we want to know what to do about it. Could we be trained to know how to respond to each other in a medical crisis were it to occur? And out of that moment, our street medic team was born, and they began 4 months after Janet's death training with nurses and EMTs. But mostly, I think when we go out to the streets and what I call rounds, doctors go on rounds, we go on street rounds. And often we are asking, where does it hurt? I remember kneeling in front of a woman And I could tell just by the look on her face that she was having a very hard time. And I said, can I give you a hug? And she said, yes. And I leaned toward her to give her a hug. And she hugged me like no one has ever hugged me before. And she began to sob and sob and sob. And then later she began to tell me the stories of her trauma. And then she looked me in the eyes and she said, you see me. You see me. And I think about our street medic team, and yes, we deal with wounds of the body often. Wounds on people's feet, cuts and burns that have gone untreated and are infected. We deal with wounds like folks not knowing that they're in the first throes of hypothermia and preventing death many times. But we deal oftentimes with wounds of the soul. This world can wound your soul. I remember the night when it was in the teens and my colleague Poncho and I were on street rounds along with different folks going out all over Asheville. And we drove by, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadowy figure on the sidewalk. And I said, is that a person? And we turned around, and sure enough, there was a man who was a veteran, and he had sat down on the sidewalk directly across from the VA hospital, prepared to die. And in the teens, he had no gloves, he had no coat, he had no blanket. And we were able to administer love and care and warmth and get him to the hospital. Because we said, no one should have to die like this. We see you. Where does it hurt? The answer to the question, where does it hurt, is the place where healing can start. And that's why I believe that the street medic team is a larger metaphor for how we treat one another in a human society. We ask the question, where does it hurt? And we show up to say, we want to be the start of healing with you because we see you. And that is the kind of human care that we can give to every person. I believe that. This week we went on rounds right before Hurricane Ian was to hit Asheville. And what we found all over the city was an elephant that had fallen asleep on the tail of a mouse. For we found our police department removing camps. People all over the city packing what little belongings they had into grocery carts to try to find a place where it was acceptable for them to lay their head. An hour before the rains began to pour. This is the chalice that shines a light on injustice, and I call on you all to take action and to tell the elephant to roll over and let the mouse free. And that means that you contact our city council and you ask them to provide shelter for all. We advocated all week for expanded shelter ahead of the hurricane, and there was none. During the pandemic, as our homeless population doubled, our shelters were cut in half. We lost half of our shelter beds. We need action in our community, and we need not to spend resources moving people from one place to another to another. That is the definition of cruelty ahead of emergency climate, hurricanes like we just faced. Many people all over the Southeast have become homeless overnight because it indeed can happen to any of us. And so I urge you to take action. And then I want to invite you. We have a robust partnership, and I'm so thrilled about it. We have had an amazing month. Our Pancho Bermejo, who was here in this pulpit last month, was honored as Western North Carolina's Peacemaker of the Year. Yes. We saw our new food truck, La Cocina de Mama, Mama's Kitchen, roll out for the first time. And we're going to get engaged more around food sharing in November, so I hope you'll come back and hang out. But I want to invite you. We have many UUCA members that have joined us in building homes at the Be Love Village, and we want to invite you out. We take construction folks any day, and I will teach you how to use a drill or other fun power tools. And we'll invite you next weekend and the weekend after to the Parade of Homes. So we are one of the houses featured in the Asheville Area Home Builders Parade of Homes. Yeah. So alongside $1 million homes, you'll see deeply affordable homes that are being built with love in the community. So you can come and take a tour of our model home and work site from 11 to 5 next Saturday and Sunday and the following Saturday and Sunday. So I'll invite you out. And then the women's group here is getting together with me this coming Saturday, and we are making period packs for our friends on the street, women, non-binary people, trans people that need those. And we'll be taking action around reproductive justice. So I invite you to come to that if you would like at 11 o'clock on Saturday. So lots of ways to continue to show up and begin to say to people, where does it hurt? And let us see you and let us heal together. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. You may contribute to Be Loved Asheville by text or on our website or by check with Community Plate on the memo line. Your gifts of your time, talent, presence, and financial resources do make a difference. This morning's offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you.
Extinguish our chalice this morning with these words by Eric Williams. The world is too beautiful to be praised by only one voice. May you have the courage to sing your part. The world is too broken to be healed by only one set of hands. May you have the courage to use your gifts. May you go in peace. Please rise in body or spirit and let us sing our closing song, Long Time Son. Following the closing song will be a postlude. Please, if you need to leave during the postlude, please do so quietly so others can enjoy the music. Thank you, choir. You are wonderful. That was